the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands.
Mike, you got the recorder?
Yeah.
Okay, please.
Okay, so we have a roll call of members. Everyone's here with the exception of Courtney, who's out on.
Give me a minute, Kevin.
We have a motion to accept the agenda.
Wait, I gotta get.
Meeting called order at 7:00.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not working.
Did it say? Just
I don't
ask.
see it. No. Okay.
Girl, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay,
Thanks for the microphone.
so we have a motion to accept the agenda. Second. Agenda is accepted. The minutes from April 27th. 2023, we just received these, so we postpone that until next meeting to approve those minutes, given there's no time to read 13 pages. Do I need a motion on that? Carol? Just do this. I go open up for public comment, Frank, it's not on the agenda. Patrick, just go ahead.
Do I come up there?
Sure.
The microphone makes it really important. Thanks for putting it up there. I want to mention a few things that are kind of related to the agenda. Just to think about. The Chrysler facility, for example. St. Louis Senate. The American Legion. Grover's Party Store. The Point at Kavanaugh Lake. I would say probably most of the homes on Kavanaugh Lake. At least half a dozen other homes throughout the township that they might be less than 1,000 square feet, for example. Many homes that are on 1 acre lots in the township. All homes in country subs that are on private roads. And some places I don't want to mention because I don't want to get people into trouble. What do these places all have in common? To the best of my understanding, all these places could not be built today under current zoning. There are other places I didn't mention too, because I don't know about them because they didn't get built. I don't know what they are. And I just want you to keep those things in mind when we're talking about other issues that you might have before you now, such as Robin Hills Farm, which is a place that did get built, amazingly, after a long struggle. A lot of the things that I mentioned here were not built in their present form when they first started. Right? They evolved over time. Their business plan evolved. Changing conditions, changing needs of the residents, changing needs of the business, or whatever, or maybe just a different vision of the owner of it. A lot of times these places get started just because somebody had some vision for something that was maybe shared by 2 or 3 other people. And nobody else in the township even could understand it or see it. I feel that sometimes with my project too, but that's not what this is about. So, you know, you're considering Robin Hills Farm requests, you're considering the solar ordinance, which is also regulating what will be or what can be, or what process you have to go through to get it, whether it's an easier process or a harder process. I was pleased to see in the draft solar ordinance that the lines regarding, the provision regarding color of the solar panels has been removed. So that is one of the things I was complaining about specifically. It looks like it was struck out or was it added?
No, that was Christina's recommendation.
Oh, that was Christina's thing.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, I was pleased to see Christina's recommendation too. I hope that you may be pleased with it. Well, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. I mean, who really has the vision of how things are gonna be in this township? Really, as it comes to solar panel manufacturers, it's probably the people that are making the solar panels. They know what color works best for collecting energy, right? That's just a very trivial example. But it also applies to other businesses like Robin Hills Farm too. It's a lot easier on the inside to know, as I'm sure Adam does here, what the business conditions are for Robin Hills Farm and what they need to do. I just hope you take that under consideration. Thank you.
Okay, Patrick, anyone else have comments related to something that's not on the agenda? Okay, the public comment is now closed at 7:05. We'll move on to unfinished business. Solar is going to be reviewed in June for further discussion. I believe there was conversations with the board about changing it to a renewable energy ordinance and including that.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that approved or is this still a process?
I'm not sure that we have to, it wasn't a motion or anything, we were just having a conversation about how that we should broaden it to include everything.
So is that part of our directive? Is that part of our directive when you look at? solar?
Yes, yes.
But that had to include, there was a budget, there should have been some action because it changed the budget for Rebecca to review the ordinance. So that's why her recommendation plus what she provided in an update for her contract. So
Okay.
if the board did not approve the change in the contract, you're stuck for a while with just solar.
So we'll just go back at the next meeting.
Right.
And do that.
Yep.
Okay.
It's not the end of the world.
Okay,
It's
so I just-
minor detail.
Yeah.
I think it's just trying to understand the status.
Sure.
Okay,
So can I make a comment about the solar ordinance while we're
sure.
I really appreciate Christina's comments on the ordinance. And there's a couple things that I think that we absolutely have to say in the one that we're creating. And we want to make sure that people who already have, solar operations at their home know that they don't have to change what they have just because we have a new ordinance. They should be grandfathered in, I think. And I think that makes her real concerned because it doesn't say that explicitly.
Yeah, and I have that comment here. It's great about discussion, right? With the solar reminder, that's something that will have to be considered, right?
And the other thing is, I don't know where we are in the dark skies ordinance. I know that there are some university students that are gonna go through our ordinances and make changes.
Right.
So that we don't have to do that. But something that I did learn in all of these solar things, education sessions that I've been attending, if we have a dark skies ordinance, that will it might have a very strong effect on wind generation because of the lights.
Because
in dark skies, you don't want to have.
And you're talking lights on the towers.
Exactly,
Windows.
yeah, thank you.
That's way out of our controls. That's way out of our controls, having that light on top of that tower.
Right.
right. But what Sandy's point is, if you put out the dark skies pad, all wind generations, probably not a likely option. They conflict.
Yes.
So maybe we do want to look at dark skies.
It has I mean, there's a lot of positive things they're doing with wind generation, especially if they're building them in a known flight path, migratory flight path. Then they turn them off at night and, I mean, it's very complicated, but it's just, it's not simple. It doesn't have to be the way that it looks when you drive by. You can come up with all sorts of suggestions to, I don't know if we're in a migratory flight path here,
I'm sure we are.
but there's plenty of people that can tell us for sure whether we are. And so those are things that we also need to take into consideration.
Yeah, no, I agree, wind will be, probably a bigger challenge than solar.
Right?
Wind will be a bigger challenge than solar.
But they tried when out to the proving grounds. Rubens, Trump sat away, and they found it was not feasible. to Put stuff up at that particular time. So I'm just. Wondering. Is it feasible today?
Yeah.
When do we anticipate the insurance will be finished with the review and bring forward recommendations? Do we have a timeline for that
The end of summer.
in the summer?
Anything else, Ed? Thank you for your comments. Next on the agenda is the administrative review ordinance, public hearing will be set on for June 22nd. Great. And now we're going to go into consideration of special use events permit for Robin Hills Farm that was tabled at the last meeting. So let's kind of jump into this. We got a letter from the Chelsea area fire authority. Just came in, I think you came in today, Carol, is that correct?
What?
The capital, right?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. And it says here, there were some inquiries that Kathy doing her review. Some events are taking place in property. Those 7 years ago and everything falls into the business operation. Special events, list that was submitted was reviewed. Rob Hills is bound following their rules and of their initial requirements, parking in posted areas. Appearing to the occupancy of the buildings, no parking at fire lane, etc. Kathy would have looked at Rob Hills for fire expectations and submitted those as well as noted for review. But back to the paragraph here. Is about to follow that we were approved in their initial requirements, but parking in posted areas are very buildings. The parking requirements adapt. So I believe that's also covered indirectly in the Midwestern Consulting Letter that we also received. So we'll take that into consideration. I appreciate the package you put together, well. Typically, when's the last time, this is the first time I ever thought you coming in as far as talking about Robin Hills.
I was here in 2020.
2020, were you?
Yeah, I believe you were here too. And
Yeah, I just couldn't,
okay.
try to get it all. So I was looking through the list here, but like the rest of this year, this what I'll call like public service type of thing, activity, lack of a better word.
Sure.
I think you've only got like one group coming in, I think, and it's the thing for the kids with the mud fest, is that? And, pull that one out.
Are you talking about our Muddy Boot summer camp program?
Yeah, the Muddy Root Summer Camp.
Yeah.
And all the rest look to me like they're commercial events.
We also have the Camp Curious, is our second summer camp program.
Which one, the summer, there's 2 events in,
2 summer camp programs on the pond.
okay,
One is geared towards younger kids, that would be Muddy Boots.
okay,
Second is geared towards a little bit older, 9 to 13, and that's called Camp Curious.
okay. Okay, anyways, I just wanted to, kind of make sure all the rest of the commissioners were kind of aware of where the, where this is at. And then the other thing is that the ordinance, ag tourism ordinance, one of the key rules for having special events is to promote and maintain the local farming and provision of the open space in the township, maintain the agricultural heritage, rural character, as it encourages new agricultural-based businesses. So if I look at the end of summer celebration, I'm not sure how that fits into those paragraph of special uses.
Can you just reiterate real quick, the paragraph that you got?
Yeah, it's promote and maintain local farming and preservation of open space within the township.
Preserve open space,
And maintain both the agricultural heritage and rural character.
okay, rural character, okay.
Encourage new agriculturally based businesses that contribute to the general economic conditions of the township and surrounding regions.
Okay.
So as I look at, applying those standards to these events, right, the end of summer celebration, 300 to 500 people. I'm not sure how that fits into that paradigm, but I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I just want to make sure everybody else is, understands the framework of what the setup for.
I think we have to look at this very openly too,
Yeah.
to make this, because what they've said when they started and what they're trying to steer towards. I think we have to,
No, I understand. But I think it's important to keep in mind what the ordinance was intended to do. Right?
Sure. If I could just say, as far as the preservation of open space, and just the very, nature of the way the property is laid out satisfies that, so. Having an event there, I don't believe would affect that. And then with regard to, the agricultural heritage and preserving that, as far as I'm aware, people have been having events on farms since there've been farms, so. I'm not sure what.
I'm just, this is a broad discussion.
Sure.
And then the event number 3, market and melody at the amphitheater. What is, when you say market, what is the intent of it?
So kind of the goal with this is, pop-up farmers market, would be at that main building, followed by, an acoustic type of show at the.
Okay. And then number 4, the trails and treats, Halloween hayride.
Correct. Yeah, so that would be, intended for children, it's a hayride out to a trick or treat trail where we'd be
You go,
passing out candy, so.
okay. So in case that's the framework for what the intent from the ordinance. And then we got the letter here, Midwestern Consulting. Has Adam seen this? The Midwestern
I
Consulting?
don't think so. I don't think so.
Let me just read this out so then.
There's copies up on the table.
You want you to go grab.
There's
a copy.
multiple copies over there.
I'll walk through it. Yeah. Well, it's got some weird stuff in there too, but really we'll just focus on the first page.
Okay.
And so the first one, and this kind of ties in with what Kappa was talking about, it says visual delineation of parking spaces and drive aisles for overflow parking should be provided. I don't know if you can pull out your old map, right, what was approved initially that shows that, see how it kind of lines up with this.
Right.
Might be a good test.
Yeah.
Provide a layout plan for how this will be executed. Did we have this anywhere, Carol?
I had the original parking management plan, but it was, focused on, not for events. It was focused for the operation, general day-to-day operation.
So the point number 2 says provide a parking management for how visitors will be directed to the temporary parking during the event. Okay. So they're recommending approval of the proposed special use permit with the following conditions, right? If after the first event, the condition to overflow parking area cafeteria due to parking usage, the applicant shall eliminate any deficiencies. The township engineer shall inspect and review if any further repairs are necessary. Variations such that regarding to repair the parking surface, permanent improvements to parking will be required of parking holding any future special events. Dry dusty conditions are present, service application of water should be applied within 24 hours of the event. If erosion of the parking surface falls during the event, certified stormwater operation in parking, the overflow should stop. If use of the overflow lots starts to exceed 5 events proposed to the township, permanent improvements to the parking surface shall be provided.
And that was all read last month as well.
Okay.
Nothing has changed from last, that's exactly what you read last month.
Yeah, I just wanted,
Right, right, I'm just saying, he didn't have, Adam didn't have, had it in draft form, and he didn't get it to me until the finalized form recently.
so Carol, one question I have, so for the first event, right? This is really how well does it go, or judge how well we want to handle the rest of the events. Is this something that you're gonna be able to go out there and assess, or is it something that Midwest?
We're not, we don't really have an identifier about who's responsible for going out and assessing it.
So if I'm understanding this letter correctly, it seems to be focused mainly on the overflow parking area. And just making sure that the conditions are such that it's an affected parking area. So if it becomes like a muddy bog pit, you know, we're gonna have to throw some gravel out.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is, though, it's based on engineers, letter. My question is, who are the people that make that determination,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so we need,
But for the parking, that would be MCI, yeah.
now, will MCI be out there during this event?
No.
To look at it?
So I think the question is after the event, who's gonna come and tell me if the parking is turned into a mud pit?
Oh, I mean, maybe the best thing is to have MCI out there as part of the event, so they can just judge as they go.
I think they're looking at, you know, the deterioration after the event. I mean, they set the parameters for how to identify and delineate the parking. And they're talking about, is it, you know, this muddy mess? I mean, we're all gonna know that it's raining, you know, what it's like.
No, I just wanna make sure
Yeah.
that, however it's looked at is. There's a mechanism to have a review to make sure everybody's happy, right?
That's up to you guys to determine who you want to go out there and review it.
Okay, so would MCI go out and do it?
If you ask them. I mean, they gotta pick up the tab. And Robin Hills will pick up the tab on it.
So,
What would something like that cost you then? I'm just kinda
No idea.
curious.
so we submitted like a deposit along with the application fee. So is it the case that to ask Western to come out and review the parking area after the event, that would be deducted? from-
That would be deducted from your, yeah.
Instead of being returned back to Robin Hill.
Yeah.
I mean, would you wanna do it each event, or do you wanna do it at the end
Well, I
of the
think
year?
the first one, we should make sense, right, just to see how it goes, and get a gauge for it. You know, based on the success of that, I'm not inclined to think somebody would do every time, unless something really explodes, right?
We do it like maybe like an estimate or a quote on it, or is it just like you're gonna, you know, maybe we could find it, if it's maybe above and beyond, it's gonna be really expensive, maybe just one of you could just drive out and check it, you know, check it
I
out.
guess Tom could, too.
I mean, it's just a grass field, you know?
That's fine, it's gonna be pretty simple after the event. If it's all tore up and everything, we know something's gonna have to be addressed.
Yeah.
And they're gonna deal with people getting stuck too.
So our guest will be the first to let us know if it's, you know, if it's not adequate.
I'm thinking it should be after the event, see what, that's,
I don't think after the events, it's who's the party that's gonna do it.
I think we should try to get Midwest to go out there
Okay,
and look at it whenever they're in the air, you know, I don't think we should have them make a special trip or just within a week or so, maybe they can go out and take a look at it.
And so, and also, what's the criteria by which they would, you know, evaluate it, let's say?
I think based upon the letter here, would be the parameters for the review.
So just that it's deteriorated in some.
Yeah.
When there's nothing, you know, just a mowed field, we get a lot of rain, they're gonna tear it up and stuff. And I think then they're gonna say we're gonna have to do something. I'm guessing that's what it's telling me, because we need to do the correct, put the top so low up. Or just put some stuff down and make it good, however you guys wanna do it. It's how I'm looking at this. I don't think we should spend a lot of money to send, especially your money, to send somebody out there during the event. Especially if it's dry like this,
Well, you could go, close by.
they don't like Angie's events. But
Okay, so.
I can drive out there and look at it, but
Yeah,
So-
well, I think to the
So
court,
the
okay,
issue is your criteria and MCI's criteria. I mean, there's a little bit of difference, so you can come back and say, I think it's okay. Although our ordinance actually says, and you guys gave relief to Robin Hills to not pave the parking. So, if it needs to, be improved, that improvement has to come back to you guys.
So your recommendation is Midwestern does it. Yeah.
My recommendation is whatever you guys want.
Speaking of all the other criteria, do you have the capability, if it's dry or dusty, to water down the space or? Okay.
Yep, yep.
I think what Tom was saying about going out, MCI going out after the event, because they know what they're. We're not professional. Land development, municipal, we're not that, they know what they're looking for. And I think, certainly they'll be able to tell if they go out after the event, like what you said.
After August, the other one's gonna be in October. Who knows what's October gonna bring? Wet weather or not. We've had dry weather, we've had wet weather, so it's something they're gonna have to project ahead. If it gives, they know what that ground is like when it rains, and they're gonna put 200, 300 cars out there. They're gonna have a mess on their hands, people get stuck all the time, they have it all rutted up and stuff. So,
has anybody ever been stuck out there in your parking areas?
None of our events have been to the degree that we've had to use that area. The whole purpose of this was just to be proactive in case it gets that way. We want to work with you to find some type of plan to manage that. But so far, no one gets stuck.
there hasn't been a problem to this point.
Correct.
All right. So I think I got a motion, I'm gonna try to make it. So Carol, you ready?
Yeah. I hope that recorder's on, because this is really acting up today. Okay, go ahead.
So we'll split it up into two buckets. Let's say motion will be one for the first event, and one for the two other events. And the two other events will be contingent upon the SCI review, will be the intent of it, okay? So the motion is to approve the 2023 special event and the summer celebration. Post event review, Midwest Consulting. Compliance with the letter dated May 16th, 2023. Subsequent. The approval of the special event. That would be the first motion. And the second motion would be,
Wait, you gotta do something first.
yeah,
That you move, who's supporting? Who's supporting the first motion?
Or
supported by Sandy.
Now you gotta vote.
Vote
Yes.
all in favor, say aye. Opposed, say no. Motion passes. Second motion is conditional approval of the market melody at the amphitheater and trails treat Halloween day subject to compliance review. Midwestern Consulting after completion. And the summer celebration review. As a special event.
So just so I'm understanding, you want to basically try one out, the end of summer celebration, have Midwestern come out, take a look, and then after that, meet again, evaluate the results, and then decide if we're gonna move forward. with
If
the two.
Midwestern satisfied with it, go ahead.
Okay, gotcha.
So that was the motion.
Support.
Seconded by Sandy. Wait.
Is that gonna be enough time to do his marketing?
I would, my
thing
thing is,
is ask.
yeah, I mean, that's a fair question. My guess is, if there's something that comes up with Midwestern, you're gonna be able to work it out beforehand.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it kind of leads into an additional question that I had, before we wrap this up, I suppose, and that was in the last meeting. Mr. Van Buren mentioned that you wouldn't consider any events in 2024 that were applied for in 2023. And I think, some confusion about that, was that if you have an event, for example, in January of 2024, when ought you apply for it? So I wondered what the actual rule is about timetable to apply for these things, so that, we can have an adequate runway to either fundraise or market, or just plan, make necessary improvements if it is required for parking, that sort of thing. So what would you say to that?
I don't have an answer for that already.
So is it the case though that you can apply for events in 2024 in 2023?
You're all correct or wrong, but the way it's currently, when that you commit at the beginning of the year to apply for events.
Yeah.
So as the ordinance is written, I don't think there's an avenue for that.
Which part? of
Well,
it
you'd
would-
come in December for the January meeting.
So you could apply in 2023.
Well, you're submitting the application for a review in 24.
Right, so I'm just trying to work out, practically speaking, let's suppose you have an event in January.
Mhm,
When should you apply for it?
December.
In December, so in 2023.
Mhm.
So then you would be able to apply in 2023, or is it the only case that it would have to be in December?
Well, if you wanna put it that way, I'll say no. I mean, the way you're pushing it, it's like, I will say, no, come in January 24.
I'm just trying to.
I know, but it's the way you're wording it, it's like you're trying to push this into a different box and it says come in annually would be January. So, previously, when previous management came in, they came in January.
Okay,
Sometimes they'd come in February, so I'm
Yeah.
just telling you.
I'm not looking at,
Okay.
change the way things are done,
Okay.
creating problems, I just wondered if maybe instead of a calendar year, we just look 12 months before each event kind of thing. That would be more practical, but if that's the way that it goes, then you, know.
Not at this time. But back to your earlier question. I think the timing on that was. So you've got roughly 2 weeks, roughly 2.5 weeks to sort out. Any sort of market issues.
And so what if it's the case that they say, yeah, we need a couple of truck tons of gravel out there and we basically got 2 weeks to turn that around? Or what if we just limit the events, so we don't wind up using the overflow parking at all? If there is an issue with, it's had to be contingent upon
I
that.
think if you were to be flexible like that, and something came up, I wouldn't understand the issue.
Yeah, that way it gives us a little more time.
We're not trying to be overly,
And if you're not planning on using multiple parking, then it becomes not an issue that, way, right?
Right, so, okay,
Yes, the whole thing is if these are gonna go over and you're gonna do more, you may wanna, I know. You may want to steer to do something with it versus. Just leave it, yeah, I got you. That's a thought, maybe, but I understand you don't know how things are going out. So I understand.
okay, do you want to vote on them?
You can vote on their ways.
Seconded by Sandy. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion is passed. And one question after you is, why is it you don't have the farmer's market out there? As the one that's in the mall or at the state bank? I'm just curious.
It's at the Palmer lot on Saturdays. And that's a brand new lot, I'm sure they want to use it for something, but we worked with the farmer's market before and we've done events, in conjunction with them, but it'd be nice to have them out, like we want to work with them for the marketing melody thing, for example.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's advertising. For visibility and stuff, someone driving by sees it, they'll pull in. I'm not saying nothing bad about, no, you're right, sit back, you can't, you have to be really looking.
you gotta know it's there.
Exactly. That's just how I look at it, and down there by the bank, it's right there on the center location and stuff. It's plus you bring people downtown Chelsea, all of that has to be a plus to get other people.
That way they're walking around.
Exactly, so that's just where I think it is.
Yeah, you need to change the date for your buck bowl to November 15th.
Yeah, oh, that one.
Then what about the agriculture, the fish farm, is that gonna take off again, or is that slow?
Fish farming is not gonna take off, we're focused on primarily on sheep and goats, so.
And how many head of sheep do you have out there?
At the moment, we've got approximately 40,
40?
yep, we'll be expanding it, by the end of the summer,
Okay.
so.
How big a goat herd?
How big a goat herd?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you the exact number off the top of my head, but I can get back to you,
Are they running them out for invasive species control?
not at the moment, like eating up poison ivy, that kind of thing.
Well, goats have been very good at clearing out the areas that were run, taken by the Russian. If there were any plans to do.
No, that's a great idea.
Okay. All right, thanks, Jim.
I have just a couple of questions here. In this, how much produce you have growing out there right now?
Right now, we don't have produce growing out there, we're focused on expanding our livestock program.
Okay. Well, I understand that, it's a lot easier.
Yeah. And, you know, for field trips and stuff, what we've noticed is the kids are less interested in the vegetables and much more interested in the goats and the sheep, so.
Okay. Moving on to new business. Is the Chelsea Square 81 unit, second extension. Chelsea Square has been held up by the only township water or sewer system. Really, it's beyond their control. I don't see anything that. We could do what extended. We must have any thoughts or comments on that.
I'm like, it's beyond their control.
Yeah.
There is someone here to speak to it.
Well,
I have nothing more to add than what I had in the letter that.
okay,
Really hadn't had.
okay. Anyone else have any thoughts or comments on this? I'm gonna make a motion to approve a 1-year extension to the Chelsea Square 1 unit following site plan for 1 year until July 7th.
May I jump in? The last extension was granted for July. This is May. Would you be willing to extend from the previous extension, which was July? Is that okay with you, Jack?
That's what I asked.
Okay,
Yeah, a year from.
a year from the previous extension, so not a year from today.
For 1 year until July 7th, 2024.
I'm sorry, is that what you said? I missed it as I was typing. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, no. We want to repeat that, Karen? Just
I'll catch you on the recording. Thanks.
all in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Comments, concerns of the planning commission members? Steve, Sandy? I said, one question for you and all this, the renewable energy you've gone and looked at.
Yes.
Does anyone talk about geothermal?
No.
No.
Because that's not a good focus.
Well, I just, one of my colleagues that works up in Point City, he just put in a geothermal heat pump in his house. He's ran into a dispute with his neighbor because he's using his well water. He's actually created a stream problem going over to his neighbor's property.
I think that's all we even think about.
Yeah, no one, I was just curious if anyone talking about those types of.
Because like the tour, and I went on another one on the 31st in Battle Creek. They're specialists in wind or in solar. I was gonna ask, I mean, they're university people, they'll know somebody.
We have a geothermal building where I work.
Yeah.
It's been interesting how it's worked. It's been pretty efficient.
Yeah, no, I did, that, they actually worked really well with the heat pumps.
Must be an open loop system that he has, if he's fighting something, with open loop and closed loop.
Yeah, he's taking it right off his well water.
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
it's where you drain it.
Or you recycle it.
Right, some just recirculate it out through a big open area underground and gain the heat back,
Right.
so it's a closed loop.
And other people I've seen that like, they live on the lake, they dump it right into the lake. Right, but the problem with that is you got people who like to use the lake in the winter time, that open water creates a safety risk. We've got to see that. Right. No, I'm just saying that those are some. Things that we've done, the other questions, that someone came in, assuming our water table is really. They want to come in and they want to put in the geothermal pumps. So that's what everyone. Where much smaller.
The McMansion?
As far as he's taking the lake water. Dumping it into the lake. So he's dumping it in.
That's name like over there.
It's only, it isn't very deep. Anyway, so there's, as you go to the interesting to see what other people talk about on various. And the other thing I've been reading about is, particularly out in California, they're having the large solar farms. They have a lot of trouble with birds crashing into them. And they've also said there's been a lot of problems with the desert wildlife that get killed off. So one of the things also take consideration as you go to these, the impact of solar farms on natural wildlife. They're pretty awesome. So we have that.
What?
Balanced approach.
They're dying desert animals?
Yes.
From what?
I didn't get into all these, they just talked about the negative impact of solar farms on desert ecosystems. Just as we look at it, you know, what are those impacts that we need to consider, right?
Well, we're not in the desert. Yeah, we don't have the same.
But there could be other impacts.
There's tons of information. What is the question you want me to find?
No, I'm just more interested in what are the general considerations, right? So for instance, you put a solar farm in, what does that do for the? Let's say the natural wildlife population used to be there, impact like endangered snakes, blue racers, and sagas, right in our area. What are those potential negative consequences?
What are the potential negative?
There's gotta be data out there, and then
Oh, you know it.
we have solar farms, we have, wind turbines, climate, there's gotta be data.
Sure.
Well, what's interesting is the data is probably on the older models that are closer to the ground versus the newer models, which they're looking at. They're now, promoting. So that's a little bit different. That data probably hasn't even been created yet.
And the other question I have is for these big solar farms, right? The solar disposal is becoming an issue, what to do with them when they're done. Are they actually doing on-site disposals? Like for instance, if you're putting in. Yeah, but are any of the municipalities looking at saying, okay, I'm gonna build a solar farm. As part of that solar farm, you have to have on-site recycling of the end of life products dumped, right?
On-site recycling.
That'd be terrible.
I don't know what the rules are.
I hope that is prohibited.
I don't know.
That we got those with farms, so they just dump their junk in the back, of 40. And that would be the most horrible thing that could possibly happen.
But I think you're gonna get a lot of pushback in regards to where does this stuff go, because a lot of people, it's not my backyard, right? So as you see go forward, is that?
Well, that's part of the ordinance for reclamation is that the amount of money that you have, if they walk away, that the local municipality has the money to remove it.
Right.
And that should be built into what escalators there are for 20-25 years. What's today's money worth and what is it worth in 20-25 years to recycle that?
That's pretty. Yeah,
I-
It is hard to
I
predict,
think
but
one of
you
the-
have something.
In one of the sessions I went to, they said you need to review those costs like every 5 years. To review the costs every 5 years.
yeah, no, I'm catching, I caught some other different articles that certain areas that don't want wind or solar recycling in their landfills. They're shutting them down.
So the EPA has actually, I sent everybody an article and talked about the EPA actually has standards for recycling and how you dispose of them properly. Again, there are companies that are not as reputable and may not recycle according to EPA standards are going to do it is the most cost effective. Again, you know, is that up to the township probably could say, you know, we want it up to these particular standards, and then when you recycle it, you show us and demonstrate to us where you recycled these panels. I mean, again, it's gonna be who's monitoring that, who's, you know, who's disposing of all of these things, who's tracking all of this stuff. It'll be very detailed, you know, whatever you do, but that should never be prohibited of just disposing on site. That would be the most horrible thing in the world.
I mean, if the solar arrays have to take everything down and make sure the tiles and the, you know, in the field, the farmer's field that they're leasing haven't been disturbed, that the land goes back to the same condition it was when they got there. Why would you not have the same kind of detail for wind generation? And we write that. We're the ones
No,
who
I'm
say,
just saying, there's other powers above the township law that they're saying they don't want that stuff in their landfills. If you're allowing it, you gotta figure out your own disposal. That's question.
Well, if it's federal, they're gonna definitely tell you where to put it.
Exactly.
What we're gonna do.
Yeah, one way or another.
Thank you, so I just. Any other comments? Make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Second by Liam, all in favor, say aye. Meeting closed at 7:44.